YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back on Overreaction Friday. Can't wait for Overreaction Monday. Quite the game last night. Quite the game. Really, it was a shit show. But I was entertained. Football's back. I'm still excited. Entertaining NFC North battle, even though it wasn't, there wasn't a whole bunch of offense. I thought it was still entertaining. But some positives from this game, but a lot more negatives to me. I'm going to go over way more than what you see on the screen. But right before we get started, subscriber goals at 40K by the end of this year. Please help us out. A lot of NFL and college football content on the channel. We got you covered every single week with recaps and pick'ems, score predictions, power rankings, plenty more. Here at the Goat House, we got you covered. So like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Go ahead and check out our Twitter. It was live tweeting the game last night, and we'll do that for as many games as I possibly can. And we also have exclusive content available. We got bonus videos on our Patreon, patreon.com/thegoathouse, videos that you won't see here on YouTube, and plenty more content. You can join our Discord chat and join our NFL Pick'ems League. Not too late for that. You missed out on one game, but it won't be bad. Won't be bad if you're just one game behind. But back to the game. Where do I start from this one? Let's start with my prediction that I got wrong. Back when I did just a week ago actually, I did division by division predictions, playoff predictions, and Super Bowl prediction. And to do that, I didn't just pull those predictions out of my rear end. I went game by game, predicted every single game for the year, every single game. And I came out with the Packers winning this game, and I went ahead and changed my mind when we actually did our pick'ems video. The reason I was picking the Packers is I was worried that the Bears offense and Mitchell Trubisky be a little rusty, because the last time they actually played in a true opponent, not their own defense, where they know they aren't maybe going 100%, or when Trubisky knows he can't get hit. The last time they played a true opponent was the Eagles in the playoffs. So that scared me. But then them being at home in that atmosphere, and, the Packers defense, so many new faces, were they going to be able to play at a high level right away? That concerned me. So I went with the Bears. So logical reasons for both teams, but my original pick was right there. So I should have stuck with the Packers. I was wrong about the new guys not being able to click. Not that I thought they were going to be bad at all, but so credit goes to the Packers defense, the new guys. They got 2 new starting safeties, 2 new starting outside linebackers, a new starting middle linebacker, and then not new players, but new faces starting on the defensive line, along with Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark was just fantastic, by the way, as expected. I had him as the number 1 3-4 nose tackle, and I think he just might be the best nose tackle in football. And he was very impressive. One play mainly stood out was when he stopped Cordero Patterson on that 3rd and short, but he was stopping the run all day and kind of makes teams scared to run up the middle. But we'll start from the beginning of this game. I thought, the Bears defense started off ridiculous. They picked up right where they left off. They were getting pressure instantly. The Packers just couldn't do anything. Could not do anything. And, the Bears struggled a little bit on offense too. The first play for the Bears on offense actually was that pitch to Tariq Cohen. I don't know if anybody saw it, but if you go on Twitter and go to Baldy's Breakdowns on Twitter, very cool. He broke down that play. He does it for a lot of plays for every game pretty much. He broke down that play, and you actually can see on that play that Cohen fumbled the pitch, that may have been a touchdown. It was wide open. One guy left to block. It was a safety, and Mike Davis was going to go block him. He may have scored on that play. So not sure what happened there on that Cohen fumble. But yeah, it was a great play design, and it was great blocking scheme, wide open. And it was very interesting that there was a defensive holding. I believe it was on Kenny Clark too on that play. Not that it impacted the game at all, but it was a snap, a pitch, so it's a running play. He fumbled it. He fell on it. 2 seconds long on a run play, and there was a defensive holding on Kenny Clark. And they showed the replay, kind of just grabbed his jersey and ripped him away to go make a play. And I don't know. That's how I was taught to play defense. So I'm confused on that call. You don't see those calls in college football. So that was a weird call, but not that it impacted the game really at all. But then, the Bears were getting some good field position. I was tweeting about it at that point that they need to go score because, the Packers will adjust. And they did adjust, even though they ended up only getting 10 points. But, the Bears had to execute when they had those good field position situations too. But kind of to break down my thoughts on, both teams here. Yeah, I thought the Packers defense played well. I thought the coaching was even better. The game plan for that game was better. He blitzed. Pettin blitzed his defense at the right times. I think that's how you beat the Bears. Trubisky's actually pretty good at the outside pressure, not really throwing under it, but avoiding the sacks, breaking the sacks. Or running. We saw that early. He ran for a couple first downs or some good yards early. So I think you got to blitz up the middle, and I thought the Packers did that very well. I thought safety play was fantastic. Darnell Savage he had himself a game. Darnell Savage had himself a game, and Amos was solid. He had the interception. He put himself in the right spot. It was kind of one of those. Anybody should catch that interception, but he put himself in the right spot. So I thought the safety duo played extremely well. I thought the outside linebacker duo played extremely well. So the safety group is 2 new guys. The outside linebacker group is 2 new guys. And Preston Smith, kind of what I was talking about all offseason, he's an outside linebacker that's going to stop the run first, and that's what he excelled at. And he did get some pressure too. Zadarius Smith's the guy that's going to get the pressure, and he did that. I thought it stood out a little more in the second half. Between the two, they didn't get a crazy amount of pressure. I thought just them as a unit, the defense as a unit did. But they played extremely well, especially for being, kind of new guys in that defense. And then we talked about Kenny Clark stood out. And then, the defense played great. Kind of back and forth. Was it the defense playing great, or was it the Bears offense playing bad? It was a mixture of both. To point something out that I wasn't in love with on the Packers defense. I wasn't in love with the cornerback play. I thought the cornerback play could have been better. If I had to point somebody out, a guy I'm very high on, I think is their best corner, but was not last night, was Jair Alexander, the former Louisville Cardinal. And I didn't think he had the best game. I didn't think he had the best game. Leaving a little bit too much cushion. I thought he could have. What he did, and I was tweeting about this too. What he did a lot last night was he played the receiver and not the ball. His eyes were too focused on the receiver. I thought he could have attacked the ball on some comebacks and sideline throws a lot better that could have resulted in, which he did perfectly in college and last year, which would have resulted in some more picks there. So I thought he was playing the receiver, not the ball. I also thought he could have tackled a little better, some arm tackles. He got juked a couple times. See Mike Davis did that. And that kind of happened for all the corners too, but I thought Kevin King had his moments where he stood out. Good job attacking the ball. Thought he could have done it a little better at times. We saw him. He had that interception that he lost. And then the same thing goes for Tramon Williams. Some arm tackles on the outside, which I didn't like. The cornerbacks didn't play bad. It's just something that didn't really match the rest of the defense. I thought they could have been better. But kind of the more I talked about Alexander's game last night, I thought, he was off his game last night. That's just what I saw on the field. But the rest of the defense was excellent. Like I said, they won them that game. Great coaching, great game plan. So we'll see if they can continue that. It is only week 1, and they did play a very rusty Bears defense. So no doubt the Packers defense got better. No doubt. Let's just see if they can continue that. I don't want anybody to get their hopes up because I've seen it in week 1. Last year it's every year really. Last year I had a couple different fan bases, but the Bucs fan bases were letting me have it. After just week 1, and they got a little too hyped, a little ahead of themselves. But not that the Packers are on. They're much better than the Bucs, but. The defense looked good. Let's see if they can keep it up. And the bad from the Packers to me was offensive line and receiver play. I thought it was off. Start with the offensive line. There was moments where it was solid. I thought they were all on the same page, especially with Rodgers. They're on the same page. I saw so many times. That's something else I want to mention. Rodgers didn't play his best game, and he underthrew at times, but he was very smart in this game. Very, very smart in this game. He had a couple good throws. He actually had a back shoulder throw to Mercedes Lewis. It was a tough catch, but he dropped it. He should have caught it. That ball was just vintage Aaron Rodgers, just beautiful. So plays like that, he was very smart on. That's really not going to show up on the stat sheet. But back to the offensive line, they were kind of the same. They were syncing the offensive line and Rodgers in terms of I guess clock management. See how many times they snapped the ball with 1 second about to hit 0, and that was perfect. That's on purpose, and I love that. But in terms of the protection, it really wasn't there. We saw too many sacks for the Bears defense, but mainly what it was for me is I saw way too much collapsing of the pocket. They let the pocket collapse way too much. Even the guys that didn't give up a lot of pressure, even Bakhtiari, who you could argue is the best left tackle in football. He allowed the pocket to collapse too many times, in my opinion. The guards did it. I thought Bulaga was really the only strong part. He did allow some collapsing at times. The whole offensive line did, but I didn't think Bakhtiari had the best game. I think he only gave up one sack. It was to Leonard Floyd, which was very impressive. We'll talk about those guys and the Bears in a little bit here. But the offensive line cannot let it collapse like that, because even if the sacks did happen, but even if the sacks don't happen, it's still not a good showing, because it's hard enough to play quarterback when the pocket's collapsed around you like that. It's tough. It's tough, and it gets in the quarterback's head. So it was impressive how Rodgers was allowing that not to get to his head. Really, we saw him get happy feet a couple times because of that, but it's normal. And he went out and he didn't play a great game. They only got 10 points, but he played a very good defense and he executed when he needed to. And I thought he was very smart. In terms of play calling, I think it was mainly Rodgers that was taking over that. I thought it was a solid job for the most part. There was times where they were trying to run the ball a little too much, and then when they gave the Bears that last chance, they just decided to do a strange throw there, which it wasn't a good throw, but it was a worse play call. So it looked like Rodgers was, calling most of the game, and smart decision. He decided to send the field goal unit, told the field goal unit to come out. You can see it. So smart decision there. Play calling could be better. On the runs, it could be better. I'd like to talk about Aaron Jones too. I did not think Aaron Jones played a great game. It wasn't a bad game. The Bears' run defense was very solid. So, it was some of those runs where, the defensive line was in the backfield already. There's really nothing he can do about that. But I don't think Aaron Jones liked this field. There was multiple times, I'd say from quarters 1 through 3, the first through third there, that he was kind of falling down, losing his feet a lot. And, Aaron Jones, last year a lot of times it seemed like he broke quite a few tackles, if I remember. It looked like, easy. It was easy to tackle him in this game. I don't think he liked the field. Nothing to overreact about going forward, obviously. But, I thought he could have kept his feet a little better. Could have ran a little harder. The runs were starting to open up late. It was starting to open up late, and I thought he was getting some decent yards. I thought he could have got more. Some shoelace tackles there that he was allowing to happen. I just don't think he liked the field. And Jamal Williams was not good. Limited time. To me, he was not good. I wish Dexter Williams would play over Jamal Williams. I think they gave Jamal Williams a pitch, which I don't really agree with that call, but he kind of waited for the ball with his hands out, like you're supposed to catch that in stride, and there was a couple runs where he just didn't have the burst. So not a huge fan of Jamal Williams from last night either. To the receivers, this is my biggest problem. Those negatives that I just said about the Packers, I'm not really worried about. I'm not going forward. I'm not taking any takeaways away from week 1. I never really do, unless it's something that I already know before. It's not really a takeaway. So the offensive line will be fine. They'll get better. Just don't let it collapse a little bit. Cornerback play will get better. Alexander's he's gonna be good. I'm high on him. And I didn't really have that as a big negative anyways. But the receiver play is my negative for the game and for the season. I am scared for the Packers about the receiver play. Devonta Adams was getting doubled, and we saw that play where he got triple covered, and he kind of counted out the corners, the defensive backs. That was kind of funny. Devonta Adams is a great receiver. But you can't ask him to be getting open as much as, more than he can when he has 2 or 3 guys covering him. You just can't, whether it's man or zone. You just can't. So the other receivers absolutely have to get open, and they were not getting open. Some of the sacks, even though the pocket was kind of collapsing, some of the sacks were, not really the offensive line's fault, because the pocket collapsed a little bit, but they had to block for so darn long against a very good Bears defense and pass rush and D-line because the receivers were just not getting open. I think there was times where deep downfield they were open. Rodgers couldn't quite set his feet, step up in the pocket and throw. But not a lot. So the receivers got to get open. If I have the same worry about the Vikings. We seen it last year. They have the best safety duo, the best receiver duo in football, but they couldn't do anything at the end of last year because they only had 2 receivers and other guys couldn't get open. They were just doubling up the other 2. And the Packers got the same situation, but they have 1 receiver. And I see that problem with other teams as well. And that's a problem for me going forward. So they do need a receiver. But overall, my take on the Packers was great game plan defensively, great defensive execution. They proved me wrong. The new faces were able to step up and play with chemistry right away. I love the safety duo. I love the outside linebacker duo. I already loved Kenny Clark, so that didn't show me anything new. But well executed. The defense got better, but will they continue to play like this against better offenses? That is the question. Good win for the Packers. Let's talk about the Bears. Defensive line played great, as I already said. Roy Robertson Harris, my God, he had himself a game, and talking about a guy that came out of nowhere too. Not a lot of people know the name Roy Robertson Harris, and people thought Bilal Nichols would be getting the start there. And they weren't really expecting Harris, and maybe people thought he was kind of the weaker spot of that defense, and not at all last night. And I don't really see it as like a week one fluky thing. The way he was playing looked like he was legit. He was good everywhere. Playing a 3-4 end, he almost looks like he can play any position. Looks like he can play a 4-3 end. Looks like he can play a 4-3 D tackle. Bears got him at 3-4 end, the perfect spot for him. He had good inside moves, outside moves. His inside moves were very, very good, and he was a big reason that pocket was collapsing big time. So I'd say he was probably the MVP of the Bears last night. And if I had to pick an MVP for the Packers, that's actually tough to think about. Too many, like I talked about, the safeties outside line and Kenny Clark. I thought Savage was impressive. I thought Savage was more impressive than Adrian Amos, even though I think Adrian Amos may have been the difference maker in this game because he played very well for the Packers, and it stood out that the Bears missed him. They definitely missed Amos in this game. Will that be the case going forward? You could argue both ways, and we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But so they're going to multiple MVPs for the Packers. So that's how good the defense played. But the Bears, Roy Robertson Harris was very impressive. Allen Robinson was impressive to me. He was open a lot where Trubisky missed him, and then he made some really good grabs too. Down the sideline, that was super impressive. Robinson, the stats won't show how good of a game he had. And Leonard Floyd was impressive to me. Another one that was really collapsing the pocket. I thought he played better than Khalil Mack did. Khalil Mack kind of forced some sacks. That's kind of what Khalil Mack does. He doesn't really get them himself, but he kind of forces them. But I thought Floyd did that a lot too, collapsing the pocket. And that one play where he just bull rushed Bakhtiari back like he was nothing. And Floyd's weakness was kind of, ever since he was at Georgia and even now, was is he strong enough to play NFL defense? Is he strong enough? He almost looks like a safety. I mean, he's gotten bigger since then, but and he just bull rushed maybe the best left tackle in football like he was nothing and got the sack on it too, and that was very impressive. And not just that play, to me he stood out. So the negative now for the Bears, the negative I thought was the offensive line and penalties. Offensive line started out okay. They were good on run blocking to me. And they started off okay pass blocking. Some of the inside blitzes. I mean, that's what the blitzes are for. Can't blame too much on the offensive line. But then the penalties started coming in. The holdings, the hands of the face. The hands of the face on Leno was a bad one. You usually see hands of the face, and 99.9% of the time it's an accident. It looked like an accident. That one looked like that was like what he was going for. It was strange. Not saying that he did, but it was weird. A lot of holding penalties. They were the fewest penalized team on holding last year with 12. They only had 12 all year, which to me is mind-blowing, how you only can have 12 in a whole season. And they're a quarter of the way there after one game, and that really hurt them. That really hurt them. They have 2nd and 40 at one point. So that really hurt them. And then they were allowing more and more pressure as the game went on, So I think the penalties that factored into that. I think the penalties factored into that because everyone knows offensive linemen hold. There's holding on every play, like no secret. So I think they try to get away with it, and it's smart. Every offensive line does it. They try to get away with it as much as they possibly can. And then once you get called for it, you can't really do it anymore. So I think that's what happened. Fourth quarter and the last couple of drives, the pressure was unreal. That they were allowing. So that kind of hurt the quarterback play. That kind of hurt the offense in general, I guess. They got a pretty good offensive line from last year. They have a very good offensive line coach too, and a group of good players. So let's see if they can figure that out. I don't have any concerns about that. I think they'll figure it out. But odd night for them. But I think the biggest negative was what we're going to talk about here was Trubisky and the play calling, which is Matt Nagy. I thought those were the weakest spots of the game. Trubisky's very lucky he only came out of that game with 1 interception. I know they don't really care. I mean, they don't care about the stats really when they play. They just go out and play. But I thought there could have been. He's lucky there wasn't more interceptions there. The way he was throwing the ball. Really just off target too. Sometimes just throwing the ball into open spaces, can't really figure out where he's throwing the ball to, and then sometimes there's Allen Robinson or Anthony Miller didn't even get a catch. I wish he was in the game a little more. I thought Gabriel played pretty well too. Want to mention him. But I thought he missed Miller and Allen Robinson on some throws, mainly Allen Robinson. So he was missing throws. He was throwing on the wrong team. I think the decision-making was it, really. Obviously, they weren't good throws, but what he was deciding to do, throw across his body, on the run the opposite way. The one that he just kind of threw up in the air, and then Gabriel was smart to push off and catch the ball, which obviously they called it back. Smart play by Gabriel. What was the decision making on that one? It was almost like a punt return. He kind of just threw it up in the air. So yeah, it's no secret. Everyone saw the game. It was a very bad game for Trubisky. I don't know if people should overreact quite yet because he hasn't played. He hasn't played against a defense where he can get hit. He was rusty to me, and it was pretty obvious. He was very rusty. But some of those decision-making things, like that really, to me, isn't rust. That's something that doesn't really change too much. So I'm not going to doubt him, but that's stuff he has to clean up, the decision-making. But the way the ball comes out in terms of arm strength and accuracy, that stuff it could be because of the rust. That stuff could be. But the decision-making is what concerns me going forward, and the play calling wasn't too good. I think sometimes Nagy gets a little too fancy. He can't really decide on a running back to play to. I thought Montgomery he wasn't great, but he was solid. He was breaking tackles on the outside. I thought they could have used him a little more. And some of the decision making too. They had they were getting quite a few delay of games. Got to put on Trubisky as well, but it was a 3rd and 5 that ended up being a 3rd and 10 because of a delay of game. Ended up being a 4th and 10 then, and it would have been I think a 50 or 51 yard field goal, and Matt Nagy decided to go for it. I do not understand that call. I'm not saying kick the field goal. I say kick it or you punt it. Maybe I guess he doesn't trust his kicker, but. Then I think you punt it. Now, I don't really know what was going through his head there, honestly. I didn't get that call. There was a lot of decisions where I thought, they should have been throwing downfield, but they were running instead. And when I thought they should have been running it, they were throwing it. It was kind of all over the place. But kind of just as I was thinking about this, which one, the quarterback play or the play calling, both pretty bad. But which one was worse? Which one was really the more decisive game? Kind of what I thought about was. Putting myself in Nagy's shoes, really. That is a very hard game to. I guess what I'm saying is Trubisky made it really hard for Nagy to call that game because the game plan was run the ball and short game, quick game, and it was working. But credit to the Packers, once it got to midfield, they didn't let it work anymore. They figured it out, and you're eventually going to have to throw the ball downfield. And that's what happened, and there was a game plan. The Bears wanted to go short game until they can open up the long game. And Trubisky was not really, he couldn't throw downfield. I'd say he could throw the sideline for most of the night. The sideline throws were solid. They were solid. So something on Nagy I think he could have done better was throw to the sideline a little more. Trubisky was not throwing very well at all in the middle of the field, and that puts Nagy in a tough situation. So, with only 3 points, do I stop throwing the ball downfield? Do I go back to the game that will run the clock out, and then we're going to have to panic, and then we're going to absolutely have to throw the ball downfield late? Or do I keep trying to throw the ball downfield to kind of set the tone and see if we can catch a break or get something, maybe get a PI call? It's a tough situation. I'm not making excuses for Nagy whatsoever. He did not call a good game. I didn't think his personnel was great. I didn't think, basically all of it I didn't think was great. Decision making. He did set up a good play on that first play of the game, though. That's where the fancy play should come in. The first play of the game, they had Cohen, and I talked about it, right? They had Cohen and Montgomery both in. Cohen dropped the ball. And that was a great play. I think that's a good time to run those plays. Going back to the 3rd and 1 where Kenny Clark stopped Cordell Patterson. When you have Cordell Patterson in the backfield on 3rd and 1, it's too obvious. They also had a 3rd and inches, I think, in the second half. And they had Trubisky in shotgun, and it was a read option. Trubisky made the wrong read on that play, but it's kind of the opposite in that situation. Trubisky made the wrong read, but Nagy put him in a very tough situation. You should not be in shotgun in 3rd and inches, but why are they in shotgun? Why is he under center? Is it because Nagy's stupid decision, or is it because he doesn't trust his quarterback under center? I think it's a problem if that's the case. So we go to shotgun read. It's kind of a read option pad, and they went for the pass, actually. And I didn't like the play call. I didn't like the read, but mainly I didn't like the play call. So you kind of can go back and forth. It was just a very tough game to call, honestly, as a play caller, in my opinion. So that's kind of my take of these games, of this game. I'm trying to think if I can remember anything. The Bears had their chance late. If you remember my prediction, it was Trubisky struggles early because he's a little rusty, but then he's played good in the fourth quarter in the past, so I thought he can go down there and score in the fourth quarter, which he actually almost did, which would have been something given the game he had if he won the game late in the fourth quarter, because it was still a bad game. The good news is it's week one. Week one always has mysterious things. You can't really have any takeaways, so these are takeaways from the game alone. I'm not saying what's going to happen in the future. The things that I kind of did say stuff could happen in the future, those are takeaways I had from last year and the offseason already. So you can't, one thing for sure, you cannot predict the future off of week one. Do not do it. You can't do it. You can have very little takeaways. Week one has shown us that, not just last year, every year. So that's the good news if you're a Bears fan, really a Packers fan too, because you got to be hyped about the defense, but everything else, you're not too thrilled with. Obviously, the goal is to get out there with a win. You're definitely happy with that. And that's really all there is to it. Really not just week one, the first few weeks. I'm not going to have I'll have takeaways like this, but I'm not going to predict the future whatsoever off the first few weeks, unless maybe somebody super important goes down hurt. So another thing I want to talk about is Trey Burton. Trey Burton wasn't able to play because of a groin issue, the same issue he had in the playoffs against the Eagles. And I heard back then that it was some sort of anxiety situation with Trey Burton. He has something going on with that, and I heard that back in the Eagles playoff game, and it's kind of weird that it's a groin situation again, and it's the first game of the year, Thursday Night Football. So I'm not going to decide. Only the Bears know. I'm not going to decide what it is with Trey Burton, but it seems a little odd that all of a sudden he ends up on the injury report the week of the game out of nowhere. So I'm not going to say what if he's actually hurt or not. I'm not here to make that, but the Bears do know, and if he is not playing when he's not hurt, maybe I'm a little harsh, but I cut that person. I know the Bears don't have too much tight end. Shaheen got one try there, dropped the ball. They don't have too much after that, but not the guy I want on my team if that's the case. I've heard it both ways. I know Bears fans are not happy with that situation as well. So that's something else I wanted to add. Anything else I want to add? I know there'll be something else right when I end this video, but I'll do these recaps for the other games on Sunday as well on Monday. But credit to the Packers defense. I keep saying how many new faces, and they were able to have chemistry and play on the same page. And you see how much they love their defense coordinator, Pettin, after the game. So it seems like a good group of guys. We knew they were heading in the right direction, but were they going to click right away? Were they going to be like a family right away? And it really looked like that. I'm not going to predict the future. I still think they can have their moments because there's so many new guys there. But the defense is going to be good. It's heading in the right direction. Looks like a good family. So that's the good takeaway from the Packers. A good takeaway from the Bears. The defense still looks really good. I will say it looks like you can throw down if the quarterback has time. It looks like I think you can throw downfield on the Bears. Like I said, Amos was kind of the difference maker because he played well for the Packers, but mainly because the Bears missed him. Something I totally forgot to mention was the one touchdown the Packers got. Not the smartest throw by Rodgers, kind of went up there, and it was Deion Bush that was in. They brought Ha-Ha out. They were really swapping them back and forth. I'm concerned on that. I'm not super high on Ha-Ha. I think maybe on a little overrated side, but I definitely think he's much better than Bush. And Bush could have easily attacked that ball. He kind of sat back, let Graham catch that. If Amos was there, I'm not saying Amos would have picked it off, but I don't think it would have been a touchdown. So we saw them missing him there. And that touchdown shouldn't have happened either. So, this game could have been a lower. The Packers could have scored after that, but it could have been even lower scoring is my point. So teams got some things to figure out. The good news is it's week one. Nobody knows how to game plan against anybody in week one. Random things happen in week one. Got to shake the rust off in week one. It applies for every team. I'll remind everybody on Sunday and Monday as well. You can have takeaways like this on what you thought of the game. Do not predict the future off of week one. Do not. Whole season ahead of us. That's going to do it. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back with more recaps. Anything else you think I forgot about that you want to talk about? shoot in the comments. I'm on Twitter as well. We were talking during the whole game, so follow us there. Subscribe, turn notifications on. Plenty more to come. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.